Hey, everybody. Let's talk about another action step. And this one is about influencing politicians and candidates. We know what the basic principles of election violence prevention are by now. And we know that there are people who are in positions of power who can have a real effect. And one of those types of people is the politicians and the candidates that are involved with the election process. So, how do we influence these groups of people in order to reduce the likelihood of election violence? Some of them are going to be easier to influence than others, but all of them are at least worth talking to. One thing that you can do with local representatives or even federal representatives is you can visit the offices of the people who represent you. You can call your senator, you can call your congressperson, and you can actually arrange to go in and have a visit in their office and talk with them. Now, the likelihood is you're not going to speak directly to the representative themselves. You are much more likely to speak with a staff member of some type. If you can, bring somebody with you, and if at all possible, make that person your political opposite, somebody from the other side of the spectrum from you. And when you go in, talk to them and simply say, I or we, depending on whether you have a companion, we're concerned. We're concerned about the possibility of election violence, and we have been studying this as a principle, and we've learned a lot about what is known in the international community about election violence. One of the things that we are asking you to do today is when you speak, please focus on solutions and not on blame. And let's talk again about that. This is that piece that's the second risk factor, the really common risk factor for election violence is when candidates are using blame-based rhetoric instead of problem-solution rhetoric. So they're trying to make us angry or afraid rather than giving us the actual solution to our problem. It works really well, actually, if the politician is trying to win an election, because they're pushing us into that reactionary mental state, and then we're likely to vote for the relatively safe option. But it also ramps up the fear, the anger, the blame, the othering, and the dehumanization that tend to lead to violence. And it suggests that there is no solution available from our government. And that's even worse because then people are thinking, well, maybe I'll need to be violent in order to get this done because nothing else seems to be working. So that's one of your two big asks when you walk in. You're saying, please, when you speak and when you make public statements, we need you to focus on solutions and what you suggest be done rather than focusing on blame, whose fault you think that it is. And then the second thing that you can do while you're in the office talking to staffers is explain to them that trust in the electoral process is another huge component of election violence prevention, making sure that elections are fair and are perceived as fair, and hand them the Braver Angels Trustworthy Elections Report. Tell them the story about that report. I've made other videos specifically on that topic, but talk to them about how this is a bipartisan list of solutions for changing our election processes that work for everybody, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, red, blue, as the Braver Angels folks put it, and say, I really need you to look at this and take it seriously. Other things that you can do if you want to influence your politicians and candidates, you can talk about and write about election violence prevention, get this into the media, start putting pressure on politicians that way. You can also hold them directly accountable for their rhetoric. So when you hear something that is blame-based rhetoric rather than problem-solution rhetoric, you can follow up and simply write to that representative and say, hey, I heard what this person said in last night's conversation or last night's debate, or I'm seeing this in the newspaper. I just want to remind you that's a really dangerous way to talk about this issue, and a problem solution rhetoric is what we need from our candidates right now. That's one possible action step, influencing those politicians and candidates. And next time we talk, we'll talk about influencing the media.